So today I'm going to give you, in what my opinion is probably the simplest lure modification that you can make to put way more fish into the boat. And it's actually like the simplest thing that you can do right on the fly. It doesn't matter if you're on the water, you're in your kayak, you're on the bank. As long as you've got this one key tool with you, you can make this simple lure modification to put 10 times more fish into the boat. Now I'm going to give you a little story, and it's one of my favorite stories because it's the day that I learned something about bass fishing that I didn't know. And it's been a long time ago, probably 10-15 years now, fishing with old dad out on the water. We're both going down this bank. I'm fishing behind him, he's fishing in front of me, flipping a creature bait. Both of us throwing a green pumpkin at creature bait, but he had made this slight modification. And the thing was, is he was catching fish 10 to my 1. And by the time he had caught probably 15 fish and I'd only put 1 in the boat, I finally looked at him and I was like, oh man, what have you done? What sort of magic juju have you put on this bait to catch so many more fish than me? And he said, son, I told you, I'm dipping the tails in some chartreuse dye. He said, look at the bluegill swimming around on the bank. And he said, look at the bluegill that this bass just spit up when I boat flipped it. He said, look at it because the body was green, looked just like that creature bait we were throwing, but the tail was chartreuse. It stood out and it really glowed when you put the bluegill into the water. He said, when you dip the tails of that creature bait in some chartreuse dye, it does a really good job of mimicking that bluegill. And that simple modification seriously was putting 10 fish to my 1 into the boat. And it's something that has always stuck with me. Dad is gone now, but it's something that still rings true in my head, that when I'm flipping a creature bait and I'm around bluegills, I dye the tails of those creature baits to look like those bluegills. Another great example of where this really works, that wasn't trying to mimic something, but it was trying to make a lure stand out more, was I was fishing below a dam discharge. Again, fishing with my buddy, Mr. Caleb Bell, and me and him both were fishing a 6-inch swim bait like this one right here. And he was getting 5 or 6 bites to my 1. And by the time he had put this 5 absolutely giant smallmouth in the boat, I said, Caleb, what's the difference here, man? He said, I am painting the side of that bait with as much chartreuse as I can to really stand out in this turbulent, dingy water. And those fish down there, just from anecdotal experience as well, love chartreuse. And he said, so get down to the bottom of the boat, get out the chartreuse dye marker and paint that swim bait up. And as soon as I did that, I started getting more and bigger bites just like Caleb was. Super simple, straightforward modifications that I made right there on the water that made all the difference in the world. And there's 2 ways that you can make these modifications. You can either use the dip and dye glow or any of like the dip glow, dyes. There's another brand out there, I think it's called JJ's Magic. And what it is these dyes are a bunch of different colors. It's not just chartreuse. I use chartreuse the most because it does a really good job of doing what I need it to do. But I've also got red pins, I've got orange pins, I've got every color that you can think of, so I can modify lures to look exactly like what I want it to, like I was with those bluegills. But I'll use this to dip my tails of my creature baits in to do a good job of mimicking bluegill. And then another tool that I use is the pin. This pin is what I actually modified the swim bait with to make it look how I needed it to look to get those smallmouth to eat it. So I'll make sure and link both the dip dye and the pins down below in a bunch of different colors so you guys can go check them out. But just keep that in mind, that when you're out on the water, use your eyes and use your senses and use anecdotal experiences and past results on the water to help modify your lures in a super simple way with either a pin or some dye so that you guys can put some more fish into the boat.